Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Business Barbershop podcast. I am Chris,
I'm Keane.
and we're back again, okay, like we always are. It is
Yeah.
July 23, 2024, and today we're going to talk some politics. We're going to talk some business, maybe the Olympics. That's my wild card that I
Mm.
talked about, and we're going to have fun as we always do. So if you like the show, hit the like button. If you don't like the show, don't hit the like button. Okay.
Go to hell.
Um, that's right. Go somewhere. Go somewhere else. There's a lot of other options out there.
Yeah.
Um, and before we get into pitch, if you need bookkeeping services or accounting services, go to bigbird.accounting.com. We can help you out. Where
Yeah.
can where can you help? How can you help people?
Whew, man. I mean, people trying to
What's it
get
going to
rich
be
off real
today?
estate, shoot me a call. I'm just
There we
thinking about
go.
like the phone calls I've had today, man. It's like, we're just scratching the surface,
Yep.
landowners
What
calling me, trying to figure out what to do with their properties.
what's
But
the number?
206-854-6618. You think about trying to build some real estate wealth in infill developments in the Pacific Northwest, I am your guy. I mean, there's a lot of people doing that stuff, but I think that help people. But I think the biggest difference from what we're doing versus others is since that we're bankers, we don't just sell people on the dream and show you how to do it. We actually tell you what you can qualify for. That's probably the
Yeah.
biggest difference. I've seen a handful of people into space, and that they're not really competition. Even they end up being partners, like Heaton and Daynard and these other brokers that are like investor focused. They sell people the same vision, but the big difference is that I'm not competition. They end up partnering with me because I'm the one who tells them, hey, if you're thinking about investing, this is once I know someone's budget, I could literally say this is the market and this is the kind of deal you need to be doing, and
Yep.
then we start build away.
Yep.
You know,
Agree. Yep, and the amount of time that you give people is significant. So I think that's also probably a little bit different from a lot of other people, you know. Like you actually
yeah,
care about people getting you actually people have to do what the work, but you do actually care about them getting it done, you know, which I think is not everybody does. So okay, cool. Let's talk politics.
yeah.
Where do you want to start?
Whew. We have this friend of ours who made some predictions about the election. The only thing left. Did we talk about that last episode?
I
We
can't
talk,
remember because we didn't no remember because we didn't meet last week. So the
okay.
Trump
Yeah.
assassination, I don't think we covered either because
Okay. So
yeah,
I don't think I could share his name because I don't want to put it out there, or, to put a name on some weird predictions. But we have a mutual friend who just threw some predictions out there, and these predictions happened a month ago. A month ago, last a month ago, it'll be exactly 30 days ago tomorrow. And these were and you have to remember at the timing of this, when this is going to come out, it's not going to be news anymore. It's
yeah,
not even news anymore now, right?
yeah,
But you have to go back. Let's see. This is going to be at the end of June. This is before that recent debate. So that was 3 weeks ago.
yeah.
The recent debate that Biden just completely screwed over and got lambasted by all of his cronies over in the Democratic Party, right? This is before that even happened, which we all kind of knew. The guy's getting old, right? And there's already like these memes and out there, but that it really started going downhill fast after that debate,
Well,
right?
you couldn't talk it away. You
Mm-hmm.
couldn't rationalize it away. There was no other explanation for what everyone in the in the world saw
Yeah,
on that debate
yeah,
stage. Yeah,
yes. So this prediction from a mutual friend of ours came before that debate, right? What he
yep.
predicted, what he predicted, and
Let's
I
call him
laughed when I
let's call him CB. So we just like that's those aren't even his initials, but let's just call him
yeah,
CB just so we can have like a name for this person.
yeah. So CB makes his prediction, this wild group of predictions that were that when I first heard them, I literally laughed out loud. And my first reaction to what he said was, "Get the fuck out of here! That shit ain't
Yep.
happening." And first prediction: uh, Biden was going to get ousted as a Democratic nominee. Okay,
Yep.
and he'd be replaced But in the history of the Democratic Party, there's never been a second-term president active in the office who didn't end up running again. I don't know if that was even the case for the Republican Party, but for sure, in the Democratic Party made a comment that they don't they've never done it before, and it's up to the president to decide if he's not going to run again. Okay.
Right.
So we just saw history happen this last Sunday when Biden bowed out, right?
Yep.
Which, I put personal politics aside, I give props to that, because at the end of the day, most of these politicians are very much just doing for their own agenda, and they act like they're public servants. And there's nothing good that comes from him bowing out, other than just what's best for the Democratic Party and potentially for the country.
Oh, yeah. He was 100% forced out, though. Don't get that wrong. He did not want to come out.
I know. Nancy Pelosi made it very clear. We could do it the hard way, or we could do it the easy way.
That's right. Well, they asked him to do it. He said no. They pulled all of his money. He said no. Yeah, and then Nancy Pelosi was like, I'm about to open the closet and pull the skeletons out. And then he's like, okay, it's time. Basically, that's kind of how it looked, right?
It did.
What did she say?
But in all fairness, if she were in the same, I mean, she couldn't be more opposite to Trump. But if someone tried to pull that shit on Trump, he'd be like, let's put on the gloves and go, right?
Oh, no, you're right. But I think she probably is a lot more like Trump than not.
Biden is. Yeah.
Just period. She's a killer, not in a bad way. Like, she plays the game, and she plays it hard, and she's good at it.
Yeah. When you play the Game of Thrones, you play to win or you die, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I always wondered. There's that line. It was Cersei Lannister who said that quote, and it was the first season of Game of Thrones, I think. And I always wondered, was that? I love that line. I always wondered, was that actually in the text of the book? But that's what makes movies like that so interesting. Is even though it's like this fantasy world with dragons and zombies, the heart of it is still this power struggle in a political world, which is very much a real thing in our lives, and we're watching it happen. I think the first written text, the first historical found written text of Rome, was a story about these senators this guy was trying to oust a senator to take a seat for power struggles. It wasn't even about what was best for the empire. It was literally it was the first written text they found in Rome, in ancient Rome.
Keane, can you give me 1 second?
Sure.
I got to go do something real fast. It'll literally take me 30 seconds.
Sure.
Okay, and we're back. We're talking about power struggles.
Yep. And so, anyways, it was very interesting watching that whole thing kind of play itself out. And what's interesting is that I mean, I feel like we're watching history. That's why people ask me what I think about these things. I'm thinking, get your popcorn.
That's right.
And it's definitely played out that way. So.
And the thing is, does it really matter? Is it really going to destroy the country? You know what? Probably not. The president can really only do so much. Where things can get real crazy is if you ever have, and this almost never happens, almost intuitively for this reason, is if you have both houses of Congress controlled by one party and the president is that same party, that's when you can get some, craziness going on. Because then everybody's aligned, so they can sort of all do what they want. There's no need for compromise, and that's when things can get a little crazy. But that almost never happens. Almost kind of, like I said, I don't know if it's intuitive, like we do that on purpose, but very rarely happens. So, so that was one prediction. What was the other?
I also thought it was really interesting. I mean, it's still. Oh, so yeah, the predictions were that he would get ousted. The other prediction was that Trump would get assassinated.
Really?
And that didn't happen. Oh yeah, he said that, right? And I was like, stop it. Secret Service, that ain't happening. Have you seen that video where they kind of show how close it was? How if he didn't turn his head,
I didn't see the video, but I did watch this podcast episode with a former like Navy SEAL type of guy that has experience on presidential details and has been in like real combat, and he made it very clear like he was like literally millimeters like away from not being here anymore, you know?
Yeah, I mean, if it hits your ear, direct shot. I mean, and what's crazy is that there's a video that kind of showed it, and it it would have got him, and he turned from the time the bolt was like aimed. He turned, and then the bolt was shot, and then his turning is what made it clip his ear instead of actually going through his skull. Like it would have like.
Yep.
I'm like, wow, that was nuts.
Yeah. Wild. Wild, wild, wild.
So, which is really unfortunate because this is not the way that we're supposed to settle. You know, potential of being a Hitler, so they might think they're saving the world from what could be the future. You know, um,
Yep.
but what I would say to that is that even if that were true, right, then I think you have to, even for all the evil that someone like Hitler did, you still have to make sure that you really are Hitler before you start trying to do stuff like that. You know what I mean? And I just
Look,
don't see
whether
it.
or
I just
not
don't
you,
see it. It wasn't necessary.
yeah,
What I thought was
whether or
really,
not you
really
like,
crazy too about like the separation. Um, Go ahead with your thoughts on that.
no, 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 go for it. Keep going.
Um, but the what I thought was so interesting is that not everyone loved Obama, but that's the case with every president. But there was definitely it was crazy how in 2008 how there was this overall feeling of hope and excitement about a candidate that people were really getting behind, right?
Hmm.
And and I know for a fact that not everyone liked him because that's literally impossible because there's an entire party of people running against him, right? But the overall feeling from people, especially people who were not so heavy on one side or the other, was that here's a person we can get behind. And I don't know if like what we're experiencing is like this pendulum swinging the other way of now we don't have anyone that we can get behind. I'll be honest with you. I was last night. I was watching a lot because obviously the news about Biden had already happened, and I've been really busy since all that stuff kind of broke. And I've heard some general stuff about Kamala Harris, but it's just not enough that I could really formulate an opinion. So I'm back in the saddle of like, okay, let's dig into her politics. I heard people make opinions of things, but I don't want to make those judgments on someone else's secondhand judgment. I want to just hear for myself. So I'm just beginning to kind of digest who she is because
Yeah.
I just historically have not paid that much attention to the vice presidents of our past. That's just you call it my fault and my own. I've always felt like they were just we'll worry about them if they're going to replace is kind of the way I always kind of took it.
Yeah. I don't think there's much there. Also,
Yeah. Yeah.
like she doesn't have a lot of political history. They
Hmm.
don't let her talk, you know.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
there's,
I wouldn't say that Biden spoke a lot when he was with Obama, right?
yeah, but well, you're right. But he also had he's also a senator, for a long time, long, long time.
Yeah.
So you have
I
to
don't
take
know her
note into that.
background. What did she
She's a
do before she
prosecutor.
took the,
She's a prosecutor in California who is not, I don't think, very well liked. I think she was, I can't remember. I can't remember there's something about her record as a prosecutor that some people are not a fan of. I think I don't know. I don't know if it had to
it
do
can't
with
be
drugs.
terrible though, because you can't just, you know,
No, it
I don't
wasn't
know.
that she was bad at her job, but I just think some of the choices that she made were not, people were frowned upon a little
Popular,
bit, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. But again, I don't
controversial.
put,
We'll call it controversial because sometimes people don't like what people do, and it ends up being something that you could like, right? But let's say controversial things. At the end
yeah.
of the day, we officially, well, we have there's now let's talk this through a little bit. The Democratic Party has not. She's only gotten Biden's endorsement. She has not gotten the whole party's endorsement, right?
Yeah, I think they're like sort of leaning that way. I don't. She still has to be voted in, at the convention. So it's not like they can just name her. Like there is a process to doing this. So,
Yeah, and I feel like I think there's still a little bit of a hey,
but
let
no one else
let
is
Biden
really.
endorse her. This is how I perceive it. Let Biden endorse her without the party endorsing her. The party will wait and see how the general polling is with the assumption that she is the incumbent, and they could still try to pivot if it ends up being ugly like they did when it was Biden.
I think they've already done that. I think no one else has raised their hand, which is a sign, that everyone else has been told to back off. So my guess is that she's going to be the one. The the hard thing is I just don't I don't know. I'm not I just don't like her. I don't know why.
Oh well, if you've done research on her, that's good to know.
I haven't done much research
I
on her.
just I
I haven't
just
done much
haven't.
research.
I just
I
haven't.
have
My reaction to her taking the primary was, if you wanted a black woman to represent the Democratic Party and have a chance to win, I mean, I'm guessing it's just not in their life plans, which is the reason why. But man, couldn't like could it? I mean, couldn't Michelle run? I feel like if she ran, it would be a landslide.
yeah.
I think if Michelle Obama put her name on the ticket, then it's
I
like
think she
game
would have
over.
a I think she would have a much better chance.
Yeah, I'm not saying she's more qualified. I'm just going off like she's extremely popular.
Yeah.
Um, obviously Hillary tried to run after Bill, so a first lady with a life in politics, um, you know, I think she fits the profile. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um,
This
I'm
assassination attempt though, it's hard to get over. It's gonna, like the the supporters of his are fired up, you know. And like what, by the way, what did you see like what an iconic moment when he comes out and he's like, "Arr," after he got shot?
it
That
was
was pretty
such
wild.
a yeah. I mean, I'm like, and it's funny how that's played out in the last couple of days. I'm like, did we um are we gonna make Donald Trump a martyr? Is that what we're doing here?
I mean,
you
he
know,
he really did though rise to the occasion. I think if somebody shot at me, I would not have gotten up off the floor. You know,
yeah,
I certainly wouldn't have poked my head back up there again for somebody to
yeah,
take another crack at me. But
yeah.
but it was pretty, I don't know what the right word is, but courageous, if nothing else. You know, wasn't the smartest move probably,
I was about to
but
say foolish is another word you're gonna use.
yeah. Well, but there was like some, you know what I'm saying? There was like
Yeah,
some, it was a moment. It was interesting.
yeah.
So so it was cool. Yeah, but we'll see. It's going to be interesting what happens. I think that,
I've heard. What I've always told a lot of people is try to formulate your own opinion with facts and do more to educate yourself before you make an opinion. I had not, you know, I was afraid to do the I side with quiz. And someone told me recently, like, yeah, well, who knows if the quiz was even put together with integrity, right?
yeah.
And so I was questioning that recently. Our friend Andrew is the one who told me about that site a long time ago. And I've noticed that when I fill out the quiz, it's gone back and forth on who it says I should vote for, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not going to give everyone my results, but I did it. I did it last night. I did it
Oh,
last
you
night.
did? I'll have
Yep.
to go do it. I haven't done it.
And I feel like, well, I kind of just picked an answer and then moved the severity of importance on a handful of questions because I didn't make them, and I found myself doing that more than I have in the past with multiple questions. And there were just certain topics that I felt really strongly about that they very clearly skewed my results, and so I feel like I should deep dive a couple of those quizzes questions a little bit further. So
What is it called?
I didn't love
What's the
all the
URL?
it's isidewith.org
Okay.
is a website. But I will tell you that it in the past it has told me to vote more Democratic than Republican, but it's gone both ways. It's told me to vote independent at times, right? And
Yep.
so but I found a lot of the political questions that were being asked. I thought some of the political questions that were asked, I felt like were shouldn't. I didn't feel like that there were federal discussions. Like when they're talking about like, do you believe they should be funding the police more? I'm like, isn't that a local decision?
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, like, who cares what the president has to say about that? Unless we're talking about funding the FBI, the U.S. Marshal's office. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it may just be an indication of like where you lean on the political spectrum more so than like an issue that you might be voting on,
Hmm.
right? So,
Yeah,
I haven't taken it though. I'll go take it
yeah, yeah.
and report back. But it's
So
going to be an interesting next couple months for sure.
yeah, like I say, get your popcorn out. You
Hmm.
know, people are going to get really emotionally charged with a lot of things that are happening, and the first thing that comes to my mind is, guys, there. Just remember the Serenity Prayer, right? Um, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Give me the
Yeah.
strength to like handle the things I can control and let go of the things that I can't or something. Like,
Yep. And the wisdom to be able to tell the difference.
yeah,
Yeah. Do your part. Live your life. Don't get too fired up over something you don't have control over. Right?
for sure.
Life is too
Well,
short.
yeah, Trump is such a firebrand for people, and I think this is exactly what you're talking about as well. I think, when you get to a stage in society where you don't have any problems, you find things to make a bigger deal of than they are,
Yeah.
you know. And yeah, fine. Whether, I don't know, Trump is, I don't know, probably not the best person in the world. Is he Hitler? He is absolutely not Hitler. You know what I'm saying? He is not on a quest to kill millions and millions and millions of people, right?
Yeah.
Does he want to get a little something something for himself? Maybe. But that ain't the same.
Yeah.
You know? That is not the same. Um, but for some reason, man, he just, he is able to just push people's buttons in a way. And I think that, we were talking about that earlier, but I think that that's the difference, from like this Obama era to now, is there's somebody that people really feel negative emotions towards, like at such a strong level that it becomes sort of irrational
Yeah,
and
the polls was like
exaggerated.
favor for or like, it's what's funny is that it's not like a 50-50 thing, or it doesn't equal 100, but it's how people are favored for you, and then there's the other aspect, which is on how what percentage of people find you unfavorable, right? And
Hmm.
Biden, Harris, and Trump all had like a 40 to 44 to 47% favored, like, but then all over 55% unfavorable, right? Um,
Yeah.
Somehow the percentages exceed 100. I don't understand exactly how that works, but I'm sure there's some explanation for it. But it's just more of a matter. I'm sure there's people who are indifferent, and there's just how people just find this person a completely unfavorable person. And he, for him, it's a personality thing. I think that Biden's uh, high unfavorable rating is probably a good mixture of um, adopting this kind of high inflationary market where there's like polarizing responses to it, mixed with um, his age and the clear issues he's had in the last couple of years, especially in the last year, related to his physical just you know you know
Yep.
deterioration.
Yep.
So
Well, the good news is it's all going to be over in probably 4 years because Trump's probably not running again, and there'll be a whole new, and the Democrats are going to have it's going to be wide open for them. So there'll be
yeah,
a whole new crop of people coming in, hopefully,
yeah,
to choose from.
yeah, yeah. We'll see. We shall see.
No
Um,
doubt.
yeah.
No
What was the other
doubt.
one of the other things we were talking about? I want to talk about um, what's the most glaring when there's a glaring downfall in industries is when there's a glaring upside in an investment world, right? People make money in down markets.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing another podcast, it was a Bigger Pockets podcast, where they were talking about the fall of commercial real estate and office space. And there's this, um, he made this comment about like how there's this, some people will find a way to profit from existing office space. But even if I think that the obvious answer is we've seen some people do like conversions of use. right?
Yep. Hmm.
So any office spaces that could be converted to multifamily potentially. Um, but even if it's not converted, I'm sure there's opportunities there. Um, and so do I think it's like just jump in buying commercial real estate? Absolutely not. But what I do think is that similar. Remember when the regional banks were all being pulled down, and the entire sector got pulled down. Um,
Yes.
I feel like there's isolated markets, asset classes that are partially classified in the same group, so on and so forth, that are being pulled down, and um, and they're being overlooked because of it.
Yep.
I
Well,
just can't figure out what I can't. If I think that there's I think there's gonna be a time that you know, and we should probably just look it up. Like, what's an ETF of commercial real estate, right?
yeah.
You know,
There are
and then
probably
just
some
start
like,
trending it.
yep. There are probably some like REITs, REITs that are commercial
Hmm.
based. The question though that you have to ask yourself when it comes to commercial real estate that is, I think, as of yet unanswered is this a paradigm shift or is this just a market correction that will come back, right? Are people going to be working in offices in the future in a way that they used to substantiate the need for this space or not?
Yeah,
I think the answer is probably yes. People are going to come back to offices eventually. It will sort of come
we're
back.
business owners, so we can actually have a pretty open conversation about this. Instead of just trying to predict on this, we
Yep,
both rent office space as we speak,
yep,
right? So I
hmm,
think that we're more better qualified to answer this question than a lot of people who are just guessing. Because I know that in the bigger pockets world, they're talking about it, but it's a residential investing world, right? I
hmm,
think the only person on that roundtable that probably could speak intelligent to it would probably be James Daynard, who's a local person here, owns Heat and Daynard with his partner Will, and they have their own office space that they either own or rent in Bellevue, Washington, right?
yep,
Um, but for a lot of people in that space, the real estate they own is not in that sector, and unless you're a customer of that space, it's hard to grasp it. I mean, I've already taken advantage of it. I saw the writing on the wall. I had a lease that expired this year. My current landlord let me carry it month to month by a position to a suitable space. You know, office space in general, even though all these things are happening, you can find a lot of space available. But if you're looking for a deal, then spaces get limited. Who's really who's willing to let the first domino fall
right,
and just rent way under market? And the minute you put those footprints in the snow, it affects what you can rent the rest of your sector for.
yep,
So my landlord, we've been talking to her about renting her space for close to 8 months. It's a 2-unit office building next to an apartment building. For some reason, I thought she owned the apartment building next door, but when I looked up the county records, it wasn't the case. But she does own some kind of apartment building. So I got the lead of the space from one of my loan officers here, and partner of my development company, Jason, who's been on our show, right? And
yep.
he talked to her about some other property, and she was operating out of the space and then was moving out to rent it. And we're paying, I think, like 1,600 a month,
Nice.
which is like the cost of a studio apartment.
Yeah,
Like if this,
significantly less.
yeah, like if this space was like literally if the half bath was converted to a full bath, and we put a kitchen in one of these office spaces, and like just took that off and just made it like a one bedroom apartment, it would rent the same,
Yep.
you know. So, um, we had to do some T and I improvements on our own dime, but you know,
At
once we
that price though,
solidify,
it's worth it. Like the math works, because you're,
yeah, math definitely works. Math
yeah,
definitely works. And so, you know, I thought it'd be cool of us to kind of brainstorm, like, what areas do we think will probably make its comeback, right? I think tech had to embrace the work from home during COVID, but they were already pushing people to come back to the office, and they're landing in a hybrid world now. If they can capture 90% of the productivity in a hybrid world, they'll do it. But hybrid still means there's office space. But I think there was still too
yes,
much developed in our area, which is why that guy lost that property over on Southport and Renton.
yep,
And there was still a lot of office space in the east side.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hybrid though also though when you do hybrid, there's opportunity to need significantly less space.
Yeah.
Because you could say you could have like two teams or even three teams using the same space, just coming in on different days. So like your need for like this expansive office space, I think goes down a lot.
Technically, that's what our office is. Like some of our
Yep.
staff is here only half the week.
Me too. So I have my team is in on Mondays and Thursdays,
Right?
and Moses, who I share space with, he's a CPA. His people come in on like Tuesdays and Fridays, and they use the exact same desks. We have monitors, we have keyboards, we have everything, and everybody has a laptop that they come in and they just basically hook in and they work. So the space doubles up for everybody, and you know, it's really pretty straightforward and very effective. And see bigger businesses, I think, thinking about doing the same thing, but for like, let's say Amazon, anywhere where you're collaborating, if you're in the office, it's better. Like it's just something about being able to read people's body language and sit in a room together. I think it just creates a different vibe that is beneficial if you're in business.
It's interesting as we talk through it. It makes me think about, you know, would that become a norm? What you and Moses are doing, because you know, um, we took advantage of it by trying to find a one-off cheap spot, but we were as lucky as we were, you know, fortuitous for doing that work. Um, you can't always find a place as cheap as what I did. It was not an easy thing to find, and I've had my eyes open, for a couple of years leading up to this move. And so, but I think about like the homeowners who buy in today's world, the ones who are successful and are excited to buy are the ones that buy house hack properties, right? Where they can rent out part of their space. And that was very niche a couple of years ago, and that's become the norm. And it makes you
Yep.
wonder what's the niche version of the commercial space. I think that, you know, there's two sides of the coin. I lean more towards people come back to the office. Some people thought they're going to work from home forever. I think the lesson to be learned is that the technology did improve. People preferred to work from home. Business owners would push back for productivity, and if data can support that you can sustain 90+% productivity with a hybrid model, then and employees prefer it. It doesn't solve some of um, the commuting problems. People are willing to suck in terrible commutes if it's only 2 days a week or 3 days a week
Right.
versus 5 days a week.
100%. And it's
Um,
it's not even it's not even that, but just your stress level is just lower. Like the grind on your psyche is just lower when you don't have to sit in traffic every single day. Like could
yeah,
you imagine just being stuck in traffic every day? You know when you wake up in the morning, you're gonna have to go sit in traffic for 45 minutes, and when you go home at night, you're gonna have to sit in traffic for 45 minutes every day.
yeah.
Like, man, that would
Like
suck,
Los
you know?
Angeles, that's an hour and a half every both ways at
Brutal.
least, right?
Yep.
So I think that it's starting to fall into this hybrid model, and maybe that's the part of the solution moving forward. I also worry about these premium costs that these people are trying to get for these really nice Class A concrete steel buildings. It's like I just it's and maybe this is too much my own point of view, but it's hard for me to justify.
Oh, yes, it's a vanity play,
Hmm.
plain and simple. I've done it before. Like I'm thinking to myself, oh, we'll get this fancy office. More people will sign up, or they'll be more impressed. No, no, they're not. As long as your place is not like dirty and run down, it's fine.
Yep.
Because they're just in and out. It just needs to pass kind of like the smell test of not being terrible. You
Yep.
know, and even because like my both of my Kirkland offices, you've been there. It's fine, but it's just a
Yeah.
regular old office. But here's the key though. Here's what's good about it. It's easy to get to.
Hmm.
The parking is free.
Yep.
You know, and you can literally just sort of park and walk in. You know, my Renton office, I don't know if you've ever been there before, but it's definitely not as nice as the Kirkland office, which in and of itself is sort of just mediocre.
You're in the
But
Evergreen building, right?
yeah, Yeah, which
Which
is
is
an
funny because
older.
that technically it's funny because it's really the only reason why it's not as nice is because it hasn't been updated. Because
Yeah,
technically, if it was updated, it falls under that Class A real estate, like office
for
space
sure.
category. It's
Yep,
concrete, steel, elevators. Just the
yep,
elevators
for
are
sure,
super old,
for sure.
and the
Yep,
walls are a
it's an
little
old.
thin.
Yeah, it's an old building,
Yeah.
but it does the job. It's good enough, and it's a place that we can go and work. It's a place that we can do signings. It does. It's even a shared conference room on the floor. We don't even have our own conference room
Hmm.
there, but it's good enough. People just if it was unsafe or just crazy, that's when you have a problem.
Oh, do you
But
have a long-term lease on that place?
no, it's well, yeah, I think I re-upped for like 3 years. I might have 2 more years left.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very curious whether or not you re-up after that because the King County Housing Authority turned that Red Line Hotel into a homeless shelter.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Yeah, they bought it.
yeah, regardless of that, I probably will look for a different place and upgrade, just a little bit. When I first got it, there really wasn't anybody in there, and I I think more so than for clients, I do want to have a space where my team likes to be, you know? Like it doesn't have to, again, it goes back to the same standard. It doesn't have to be amazing, but I do want it to be good, you know?
Yeah.
I want it to be comfortable for them. I want it, to be
Where's your team
quiet.
based out of?
So two of my attorneys are in that Renton office all the time.
But where do they live?
Oh, one lives in Renton and one lives in Puyallup, basically.
Hmm.
So, that's what's good for them. It's a relatively short commute. For one, it's a super short commute. For the other
It's
one,
funny, the
it's
office
a,
space doesn't really get cheaper as you get further south. It's not that different. Like from Bellevue down to like Kent, it's like,
yeah, yeah. Now this space was a good deal, but it's sort of it's not a huge space.
yeah.
It's in line. You're paying sort of like the same price per square foot. It's just not, I think it's only maybe like, I don't know what it is, 1,000 square feet, maybe 600.
Hmm.
I don't know what it is. Not big.
Yeah.
So big enough for two people comfortably, but that's
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the thing with the office space, if you're going to be an investor, purely for the investment side, it's like the real estate market when it tanked in '08. You can buy in '09, but you're going to have to buckle up and probably hold on for a few years and see what happens. You know, like you're not going to have some big turnaround all at once. You're going to have to ride ride the wave and
Yeah.
wait a little. You know, but some of the deals people are getting are like just off the charts, right? Like it's like 80% discount on some of these really big office buildings, really, really significant discounts. And you know, it's crazy. But I was just
I'm
actually
gonna
just
look it
talking
up
to,
right now.
yeah, I was just talking to somebody about this right
Uh,
before we got on the call. The law firm, another law firm owner. What, the type of real estate that I would buy commercially, I would love to buy like a 2-story building, maybe a 3-story building that's got like a lot of charm, and is like sort of historic, maybe like a bank. Put my
yeah.
law firm in there and rent the space out. That's if I was going to be buying, that's what I like personally would like love to have. I don't know that that's very much cheaper though. I think that's still sort of a space that gets filled up, you know.
It's funny because I was looking up large office space REITs, and one of the companies that pulled up, um, Kilroy Realty. I'm pretty sure it's the same company. I grew up with a gal, um, not my age. She's my parents' friend. Her name's Dana. Married name was Pantuso. She ended up getting divorced, but her main name's Kilroy. I'm pretty sure that her dad's the one who started this company.
Oh, really? That's
Hmm.
cool.
I knew he owned a bunch of real estate, you know, and did very well for himself. Kilroy Realty owns 55 properties spanning over 14 million square feet across San Francisco, Los Angeles, Pacific Northwest, Austin, and San Diego. Imagine that. Yeah, there'd be, uh, and then there's all office REITs. Yep. But like, and then Alexandria Real Estate is a publicly traded largest office REIT. I think that was probably the best one to look at, like how the whole sector is doing.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Year to date down 4%. Its lowest point. Let's see here. This year, 12. It's around 112 a share. It's trading at 121 right now. The PE ratio is out of control, super high, but they do pay a decent yield, and analysts are predicting that it should buy. Not sure why.
Yeah, I mean, for the commercial side of things, a lot of that depends on when you refinanced, you know, when your terms are coming due. That's how I think those people are getting in big trouble, is those terms are resetting, and now with the interest rates so high, you just have no margin for error.
Yeah,
And
you'd
it's
want to
really
look at
easy.
how leveraged these REITs are, and
Yeah.
then but even the ones that aren't as leveraged who can ride this out, like timing the buy, like when do you start dollar cost averaging into it, because obviously even if they can ride it out, they get pulled down, so their share values will drop because of the sector being pulled down. But
Yep.
you know, like you mentioned before, time in the market's more important than time in the market. I think that if you know it's on the downside and you believe there's going to be a rebound, you start dollar cost averaging it. But it's the only sector I know. I mean, when people say like what companies have taken a hit that you believe will make a bounce back, or sectors, there's only two that stood out to me. Last year I think that there's a handful that just made so much sense to me. Handful of tech companies like Facebook slash Meta.
Yep.
Regional banks had an issue, but I knew that they weren't all operating the same way. Um, there's Last year I felt like it was a really easy year, at least for me, to identify some good investments. This year it's like I can see that there's going to be some that are going to bounce back, but I can't tell if it's too soon. I think commercial office real estate's one sector, and then the other one's not really a sector because it's a duopoly. It's Boeing, right?
Yeah. I've
Um,
I've been watching them too, but man, they are just cannot get their shit together at
no,
all.
I've already started buying into the Boeing though. I started
Yep.
buying in maybe a month or so ago, and every dip I buy a little bit more. Everything else is like going up and up and up, and I'm
Yep.
like, yeah, and everyone's all hot on Nvidia and stuff like that, but it's like, you know, if I can't determine that it's going to keep going up, I just can't buy it. For me, the
Yeah.
purchase of Boeing is maybe I bought too soon and it will go up, but it maybe won't come up for a while. Fine, that just gives me a longer window of time that I could buy it on the cheap. You know,
Yep. I mean, they have those defense contract relationships and things like that, so they're
yeah, they're
in.
basically 50. They're like 70, 80% a duopoly against Airbus, right? Only
Yep.
two manufacturers in the world. And the other sector they're in is the defense contracts, which Airbus doesn't participate in. I mean, they have I think that that's kind of what we're referring to before we start recording, is that sometimes the biggest enemy of a company that has such a strong hold of their market share is that when it gets so strong that no one checks you when you start to, like, you know, let the,
Yep.
we start to fall off the rails until you let it go too far, right?
Yep.
And honestly, that's what happened with Boeing with their safety measures and so forth. And
100%.
we were before we got on, I was talking about, like, or just like about how bad service levels are for companies like Xfinity, and it's very much similar, right? Like if you want a super fast business internet line ran to
Yep.
your office, what are your options?
Yep.
CenturyLink and Xfinity. And
Well, it's
so,
the same here. The other thing too is it's the same with banks in a way. Like your switching costs are also very, very high. So phone carriers also same thing, right? So once you get into something, to switch to somebody else, it sucks.
mhm,
Sucks to change banks, sucks to change internet providers because you got to do the whole thing all over again, which is not a good experience. Tough to
mhm,
change phones, phone carriers, all those also, and it's for the same reason because there just aren't that many competitors. So there's no need for them to worry about it. But yeah, getting internet service is never fun, particularly
yeah,
if they're not hooked in there, you know, already.
yeah.
Mm.
Even with even with all that market share and security safety, they still operate on a super high level, you know, where they're not letting it go lightly. And actually, if you think about companies that would meet that criteria, where they have, you know, strong market share, lots of earnings, and is still ran well to boot, it actually almost defines the majority of the holdings that Berkshire owns, right?
Yeah.
Um, they're very much in that kind of a space. Who they like to invest in is usually companies that have the, you know, a mix of all that, right?
Yeah.
You know,
American Express, Coca-Cola,
Apple,
you know, Apple.
yep,
How long,
Bank
when
of
have you
America.
ever heard anything bad from any of those companies?
Well,
Market
Apple,
service.
when the news broke about them, yeah, remember we all worried that they were trying to kill our batteries when the new phone came out, and it turned out that they really were.
Yeah, but that's like such a tiny thing. Like that's not a, I mean, that doesn't, I didn't, for me, that's, if you would have told me that, I would have said, I don't even know about this. It's like such a thing I wouldn't even pay attention to, you know?
Really? I thought it was
Yeah.
a pretty big deal. It's funny because I actually felt like it was they were doing it, and like, why is my phone always having issues when a new phone comes out? And then it was kind of like a, you know, like a conspiracy theory that we all kind of joked about, and then it came
Yeah.
out that it was real. And it's like, you know, fuck you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, you definitely don't, you know, you don't want it to happen, those types of things. But even that though, I would consider that to be like, man, you know, sucks, but it wasn't really a blip for them. It's not like people are like, I can't trust Apple anymore, because of this battery issue.
Yeah,
Because on the whole, the experience is still good, you know, overall.
yeah,
They're just they don't have any. No one is meeting their, you know, their sort of aesthetic level. Even customer service though, when you go into the store, it's a good experience. Most
yeah,
9 times out of 10, like they do a good job, you know.
yeah.
So those are, but and by the way, that's also good advice just for your company in general, right?
Here's a question I have for you: is it more important in today's world to have an iPhone or a car?
Uh, well, I guess it depends on a little bit on who you are, but
Yes, yes,
but
but let's just play the field. Let's just play the
you
field.
mhm, probably a phone.
That's nuts,
I mean, because you
right?
can you can summon a car at any time, right?
And
So
there's
you
public
can go.
transportation, but public phones have gone away.
Well, yeah, it's two things about it. Think about this. Not even public transportation. You can use Uber. But the other thing, the flip side of that though too, is you can have almost everything delivered to you now that you want.
Yeah,
You don't ever have to go to the grocery store if you don't want to, right? The only time you would need a car is if you needed to go somewhere, go to work, I guess, go to maybe like doctor's office or,
as I was
you
saying,
know,
like if it was a go to work thing, then you could use public transportation.
yeah, for sure.
If it was a, if let's say you work from home, right? You could, you know, you could say Ubering is expensive, but if you took out owning a car and insurance for the car out of it, how much more are you really spending? You know, um, if you
Yep,
don't own one, right?
yep. The only thing I guess, and also there's Turo. So if you could always just rent a car, you know, and go somewhere, right?
I
So
was
if you
just
out, what
thinking
out, yeah,
this morning when I came to the office, I lost my car keys, and uh, asked my sister to come pick me up, and I met her at the coffee shop that was like 20% of the way to the office. I just walked there, and I thought to myself, my new office is a lot closer. I'm like,
hmm
should I start riding a bike to work?
you get like an e-bike and do it too,
Hmm.
that way you don't have to battle those hills.
I mean,
But
there's not a lot of hills between here and there, and the
yeah,
hills are probably good for you.
well they are. I just don't like to get to work and be sweaty, like
True.
I don't want going home maybe fine or whatever, but I don't want to be sweaty going into work
Yeah.
because I
True.
could I could definitely bike to my office, right? My
Yeah.
office is like a mile away, and there's a bike path that will take you all the way there.
You
So,
never thought about doing it?
I have, but it's all. But what gets a little bit tricky is like during the school year, I got to pick the kids up from school, drop them off or whatever. It's like there's sometimes just a need for the car, That's probably the biggest hindrance, but that's not every day.
But it would be but hey, we should try it. Do the bike thing, and the school year comes around, and it's like then do the Uber thing and see if it.
Also, I ain't, that's right. When it's raining outside, I'm not getting on that bike.
No,
You know what I'm saying?
no.
Or if
It
it's
definitely
cold, I ain't
feels.
biking.
It definitely feels like a summer thing.
Hmm.
You get a summer break, and you get the weather. At least for the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, but we talked about it's also there for where from my house to my office. There is a significant hill. Like it's not
Yes.
it's no joke. You know, going down to the water or whatever. Like it's the real
Yeah.
deal. So we had talked about getting e-bikes. You know, so we could because we're close to the to like downtown, and we could ride our bikes. You know, ride bikes down there and whatever, grab a drink or something if we want. We just haven't pulled the trigger on it, but it's definitely something I've thought about for sure.
Yeah.
But it's also just a convenience factor. I'm bougie, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't mind. I would bike. I would, but not all the time.
Yeah.
So,
Very interesting. Very
yep,
interesting. So what are your
yep, yep.
what is without what is your prediction of what you think is going to happen with the election?
I think that Harris is going to be the nominee. I think that she is going to not do a good job. What I mean is, I just don't see her as someone that can like capture everyone's attention. You know, like anybody that hates Trump is obviously now they have someone that they can vote for, which is really, I think, all they were looking for. You could
And
put
I
a
think Biden fit that last time and it worked.
for sure, but he did not fit it this time. That was the problem that they were having. You
Yeah.
know, like there was a real like crisis of conscience. Do I put somebody in there that is, you know, does not have the mental acuity to do the job, or this person that I just really, really don't like? You know, so I think it will be closer now, but my prediction is still that Trump will win. That would be my prediction.
Interesting.
I think he just has a lot of momentum. I think that this time also he's you know whether or not he actually has done this. I think him losing. Um, I think for a while he thought I could not lose no matter what. I'm gonna do whatever I want. I cannot lose. But this time he's like a lot more measured with what he's saying. You know, he's definitely being less you know like he's much starting much less conflict, right? You haven't really heard a lot of things that make you want to hate him this time that you had come out the last time. I think like his rhetoric is a little bit more toned down, and I think that that's really helping him
Hmm.
because there are some he doesn't have all terrible ideas, with what he wants to do. And so, and there's a real dichotomy between what each side is proposing.
So want to hear the last prediction our friend made?
Yeah, yeah,
Last prediction is that Bobby Kennedy would go in for the Democratic Party.
yeah.
They'd still slide him in, even though
That
he's not.
ain't
Yeah.
that ain't happening. No, that ain't happening. That's the other thing I think that's gonna. Well, it depends
Was
on
that is
what.
that more or less likely than the other two predictions?
I think it's less likely. I just think the Democratic Party, they don't trust him. They don't like him. They're never gonna let him in. He just doesn't. It just doesn't have the. Doesn't. It's not gonna work.
Hmm. I
Like the
don't know him all
machine is
enough.
not gonna allow it.
I don't know him
He
all
had to
enough.
run his. I mean, he couldn't even get on the debate stage with those guys. So they don't. They wouldn't let him in at all. So I think, um, maybe he'd be like a VP choice or something like that. Maybe. I think what he's going to end up doing though, which could have an effect on the election, is he's probably going to eventually. Well, I think the way that he runs probably does lean more Democratic. So if he stays in the race, if he stays on as an independent, he probably will steal votes from Harris. You know, for voters that if he wasn't there would choose one way or the other, they probably would lean towards Harris, I would guess. You
Hmm.
know,
Too
but the
polarizing of
diff
a figure to be a vice president, I would think.
I think so. Too much star power too. I think it's like these politicians, man, they're very ego driven, and they don't want to be second fiddle to anyone.
Yeah.
You know, that's why Barack Obama was never going to be anybody's VP choice. Too much, too much star power. After that speech that he gave. You have to go all the way to the top or nothing, you know. So, what is your prediction?
Phew. I asked the question because I have no fucking clue. Um, I felt like Trump was probably going to win when Biden was in the condition he's in. And now that Harris is, or someone else will replace Biden, then I think it's a coin toss. Um, I really have no idea. I wish I could tell you, but I wish I could tell you if I even thought it was going to go one way or the other. And I, that's one of the reasons why I find myself doing so much research now, is because I'm trying to formulate an opinion, and I, and I'm very, very lost for words. I, I can't even begin to try to predict which way it's going to go. I tried to, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I was watching the polling, but it's just, I also feel like whatever I'm seeing now is too new. I think that maybe too many people are in the same boat as me, which is like, well, you know, between these two options, I don't love either one. And now all of a sudden one option's gone, there's a new one that's in, and I know nothing about her.
Yeah,
I've heard a handful of things that weren't positive about her, but now that it's a real thing, I'm paying more attention to what those things were, where before I wasn't. And so I can't
right.
say that I didn't have enough of an opinion of those things to say for or not. But I can tell you what I'm hoping. I'm hoping she convinces me that she's a good candidate, because I have no idea. Um,
Yeah,
I'm hoping that
yeah,
she will actually start to give some strong opinions of where her political stance is with things, and positions herself out there in a good way, and that there's some alignment, because I'm looking for alignment. I'm starving
yeah,
for an alignment. And with Trump, there's a handful of things that align very well, and there's some things that align terribly. And so I'm just like, you know, it's a very mixed bag for me with him.
yeah. What I would
And
be on the lookout for, and I don't know if this will even happen, but it's just um, just because of the times. Trump has done a lot of like long form interviews, where you just sit down with somebody for like an hour and they're just peppering him with questions.
like a
Those are,
Barbara,
I
like a
think,
like a Barbara Walters.
no,
And
like a podcast, like all in podcast. I think he
mm,
went on like Logan Paul, you know.
mm,
So it's just all of these different people. But what you get with the long form is you can't soundbite it. You can't. You can't. It's hard to escape the questions. It's hard not to have a
yeah,
conversation.
yeah,
Trump has done quite a bit of that. Harris has not, because it's not been her place. So my hope is that she does the same thing, where she'll go someplace where people will ask her meaningful questions and she actually has to give an answer, as opposed to
they should
like
make
a
they should make a Between Two Ferns episode with her.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Because even that though, yeah, even something like that, being able to go on and be funny, or just
I wonder if Zach
have some
Galifianakis
personality.
is Democratic, because he had Obama and Hillary on his show, but when Hillary was on the show, he did that joke where he's like, "Wait, like we have to." She's about to answer a question. He's like, "Wait, we gotta pause for our sponsor." And then the sponsor was a Trump commercial. She's like, "Why would you play a commercial
That's amazing.
of my opponent on our interview?" He's like, "He paid me in steaks."
That's hilarious. Yes.
um, but you're right. I think I'm um, the debate platform has its place, but you're right. That long form interview process would be I would find that valuable. I
Yeah.
just don't know where she stands politically, and I don't even know. Like, now that I think about it, when I did that I Side With quiz last night, um, I don't know if they even had her on there. Maybe too fresh.
Yeah.
I don't know where she stands. I just had to assume that her political stance on most views is parallel to Biden, because she was his vice president. But I just, you know, I can't say. What thing that does bother me though?
What's that?
Um, it bothers me that if we really are going to make her our first female black presidential candidate, that it was a last minute shoe in. I find
Yeah.
that a little irritating. It's like this is a historic moment to say that we have a real chance to have a black female presidential candidate, and two things bother me: A, I know nothing about her, and B, it's only because we decided the old white dude is too old, you know.
Yep.
And I kind of wish
Yeah.
that I kind of wish it was. I mean, for my own selfish purposes, I kind of just wish it was a little bit more of an historical event, you know, instead of a well, this is the best thing we got as a replacement, you know. Let's say she's a great candidate. Like, would it have to be that? I don't know. There's just something about that I don't love, and it's not a reaction to. I mean, look, if that's how it has to go, and that's how it has to go, then so be it. But I kind of wish it was, like when Obama did it, it was like, hey, we have our first, black president, and it wasn't like a replacement. It was like we got behind that guy, right?
Well, okay, so, okay, we're about to go into controversial territory here.
Okay.
What I like about that, about Obama, was he was the best person for the job.
Yes.
Regardless of color or sex or anything like that, he was the best person. That's why he was elected,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of saying the same thing. He came up, he did his own thing, he won. You
Yeah.
know, I think the idea of we need to have someone that's a female black person to do to
I want
insert
the best
any of
person for the job too.
that's right,
No
insert
question.
any of those things. I just want the best person. I think that it is still hard for women, for minorities to ascend to those positions. I still think that there are some barriers to do that, but I think it is possible. I think he's demonstrated that, but it's also a one of one position, you know. It is the most powerful person in the world.
Yeah.
You want the best person in that spot that can do the job.
So here's the real
Uh,
question: do we not even know whether or not she is because they haven't let us see who she is yet,
what I've heard
or is
from
she a
not
figure, or
like
is she a figurehead to help the Democratic Party win against Trump when she was vice president?
that's right. I don't
There's
know.
obviously a reputation for that, but I can't speak to it
I
intelligently
don't
whether or not it
know,
was
but
one or the
I've
other.
never heard so like, just and by heard, it's not like I'm having conversations with people in the know, but just like the information that I have heard, the things that I have never heard anyone speak highly of her in a way like she's a badass. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
It's always sort of like, oh, she's fine, which again, it's like, do you want that person in that position? I don't know, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. But I also have definitely not done a lot of research, but there are people that are really into this stuff that talk about it and they are relatively impartial, or there's a whole bunch of people together with different viewpoints. No one has
Hmm.
ever said, no one has ever said she's the one, you know,
Yep.
which I
You'll
think
be
is telling.
you know what would be I mean, now I'm just playing Game of Thrones. You know what would have been really interesting is what if the bolt didn't miss and ended up being Nikki Haley versus Kamala Harris? Then what would have happened?
Who knows?
I can tell
Who
you,
knows?
I will share this. I did the I side with quiz is very different than it was earlier in the year. I did take it early in the year, and the questions were very different. And I did do it back then. It told me back then to vote for her. It was the
For
first
Nikki
time in a
Haley?
couple of years. It's the first time that it told me to vote Republican. It told me to vote for Biden and Hillary before then, um, and like I said, it's told me, and it's also told me to vote for Independent and Republican. It's been all over the place for me,
Yeah.
right? But I know that
I'm
when I
gonna
did
take
the
it when
fun,
we're done.
yeah.
Here, and I'll text you and tell you what mine said.
But I didn't know anything about her personal politics until I took the test, and I saw which ones that were leaning towards, and I thought, okay, well, if she has a chance, I'll pay attention. But if she you know um, she got crushed by Trump. It wasn't even close, right?
Yeah. Well,
I thought that guy from Florida too would have a chance, a Florida governor,
mhm.
Ron DeSantis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
They're
he's
both,
really
the thing
popular
is,
in that state.
yeah, he's a great, I think he's, well, okay, great. This is all gonna people are gonna just be agree or disagree with anything that you say here. From an executive standpoint, from a running the country standpoint, I think he's people would say he does a good job and is very experienced. I just don't think he has that star power that Trump just blankets everybody. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Like he just minimizes everyone. It's just for some reason, people are just locked in on him, and that makes it super hard. That's why it's
I
going
was
to be
really.
interesting.
I remember
Yeah,
I remember that the last election. There was that moment where Michael Bloomberg said he was going to run just to give someone an alternative business person to run for because he hated Trump so much. And I was
yep.
really interested to see how that played out, but he bowed out so quickly.
It's the same. It's well because he's a billionaire. People, and even though this is the crazy thing about Trump. Even though he's falls into that same category, people don't see him like that. You know, I think it's probably because he is a little crass at times. Like he look. He says he. This is to like drill down all the way into your own business. He really is who he is. You know, and I think people resonate with that a little bit. What's really hard with a lot of these presidential candidates and any of the federal candidates, Senate, stuff like that, you literally never get any perspective or idea on who they are as a person. You know what I'm saying? You never, everything is staged, everything is
Yeah.
scripted. Like you never hear them crack a joke that's like off color or something, or even, mildly sarcastic. You just don't even hear or see any of that. And I think that when you have someone that's why George W. Bush was so popular because he was kind of the same way. You know what I'm saying? He's got this like Texas drawl, and he does, like he's out there checking. I'll have a beer with you or
I'd
whatever.
argue the same could be said about Bill Clinton,
Oh, Bill Clinton
even though he
too,
would,
100%.
yeah,
Here's the thing too. Even Obama was actually the same. He also had that ability. He's just very well spoken and very good at expressing his ideas. But you saw him on the basketball court. You saw him like he would crack jokes with people, and you know what I'm saying? Like I think that makes a really, really big difference in your own business and in politics. I think it because there's so little of it, it really can be a driver for you if you
yeah,
resonate with people. You know, if you're a
yeah,
weirdo, like the guy from I think from Massachusetts. He was like, "Oh, you remember that dude?"
yeah,
He was like, he was up there, and then he did that, and then people were like, "Not good."
yeah.
Literally, he just was excited and just yelled. But yeah, that's
It's funny. I remember seeing a Key and Peele, those guys that do those skits,
uh-huh.
those two
Yeah.
black guys, and they were doing a skit um about like this black politician. I don't know if they're making fun of if they were making fun of specifically Obama, but like every time the guy would come, to a black guy, and he kind of like, he's like, "What's up?" and like,
Uh-huh.
and
Yep.
then it gets to the white guys, like shake hands proper, right? And like, oh, and then he gives like a hug and a high five to a black dude, and then like a white woman tries to give him a hug, and he's like,
Nice.
like, don't hug
Yeah.
me, shake my hand. And it's
Yeah.
funny because I saw a video where it shows a skit next to like Obama kind of doing the exact same thing, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, you got to play the
um,
game a little bit. I mean, it's just who we are as humans. But I think that I think Harris is going to have a really hard time connecting with people the way that Trump does. You
yeah,
know. And look, even Biden, he was kind of fiery. He's kind of a wacky guy in some sense. Like didn't he tried to he got in a fight with somebody at like a auto workers event he was at, where like he's yelling back and forth at people. Like there's that kind of stuff makes a difference. They want you know whether or not it matters on the issues, you still want to kind of feel like the person that you're voting for.
well, I mean, at the end of the day, you're voting for a leader,
Right,
and a leader shouldn't be a figurehead only
right,
and just tell you what you want to hear.
right.
um they should they you know the
Yep,
stories you hear about great leaders were never without controversy or conflict.
right,
you
for
know
sure. Yep. Yeah, I mean leadership often means taking the stand, like
Mhm.
having a perspective on something.
Yeah,
And when you do that, some people are not going to agree with you. That's the whole idea of having a perspective on something, a viewpoint. So,
Well, we shall see.
yep,
We shall
we'll
see.
see. Well,
Yeah.
we can just keep going. We can keep checking
Yeah.
in. I'm sure there'll be new stuff to talk about every week.
But
So,
you know, I think would be more. Here's my advice to people who might be listening to this episode, though. We might spend more time talking about the election just because it's recent news. But here's what I'm really going to do. I will answer the I side with quiz a little closer, and I am going to be investigating the real impact of office space in different marketplaces and why and how different real estate can be repurposed. And that's the best advice I can give to you guys too, is do what you can control, you
yeah,
know,
for sure.
because
Oh,
what you
yeah.
can control is where you're going to find your opportunity, and with your opportunity, it's like, you could just make changes in your life, and I think that, I don't want that to get overshadowed for this conversation,
Yep. Yep.
um,
And I
because
know
this conversation is a little bit of what people fall into in their life trap, you know.
100%. I spent no time on this. I'll tell you where I listened to this podcast. I've talked about it a million times. It's called the All In Podcast. It's got four guys on it with very different perspectives. They have brought on Trump. They brought on Bobby Kennedy Jr. They brought on a bunch of different people, and they will ask them questions and stuff like that. But then they also it's like an hour a week. That's where I spend my time and get pretty much all of my information because it's very, very different perspectives. They're all very clear about where they stand on everything, and they talk about stuff. Like they're not shouting at each other. They are willing to concede certain things or push back on certain things. And it's for me, it's just a way to get a summary of like what's happening. But other than that, I ain't thinking about this stuff. When we get off of here, I'm gonna go back to work. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, it's not. I don't know. It's not the type of thing that's gonna greatly affect me. I don't think in the short or the long term. And like
And
you
even
said,
if it
have more
does,
control.
because some people do make a really big deal about how politics affects their life, okay, well then vote and don't do any more. Don't spend more time on it other than voting, because bitching about it for X amount of time doesn't change the result.
That's right. Something's gonna happen, and you're gonna have to react one way or another. If it's good for you, that's great. You're gonna be able to take advantage of that. If it's bad for you, you know what? You're gonna have to regroup. You're gonna have to pivot. You're gonna have to strategize. You're gonna have to do something and take
I can
care.
tell you one thing: I could go back every 4-year cycle during any particular presidential term, and I could tell you things that I fucked up on and things that I took advantage of and was opportunistic, and it has, and I give, I mean, and maybe this is selfish to me, I give almost no credit to the president for the
Yeah.
outcome of any of those failures or successes. I
Yep.
just don't,
For sure. For sure.
you
Yep.
know.
All right. Cool. That's a good place to wrap up.
Yeah,
So, if you're still listening, then you know you're a saint. Okay.
yeah,
Thank you for
throwing
talking.
tomatoes at
Right. Probably.
of our
Yep. And we'll
pictures.
be. Yep. We'll be back again next week, I think. And if you did like this, leave a comment or I don't know, just keep listening because we don't care
Yeah,
if you listen or not. Really, we'll just do this anyway.
I know.
But
But to my friends, I've been telling me when they see me that they listen to the show. Like,
yeah.
I give you some love. I appreciate you guys. I've said it now more than a dozen times where they say, "Yeah, I listen to your show." I'm like, "Oh, you're the one." I'm like, I can't say that joke
Uh-huh.
anymore.
Yep.
You know, I think I've
Yep.
said it more than 10 times at this point. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. I'm just kidding. We do like it. Well, like we don't really necessarily do this for everybody that listens, but having people think we're interesting enough or whatever to want to hear our perspectives, we appreciate you. All
Yeah,
right,
we're just
all right,
trying to find our way, just like you guys are.
100%, 100%.
Yeah,
Okay, cool. All right, so we are wrapping it up. This is the Business Barbershop podcast. I am Chris.
I'm Keane.
See you later.
See you guys later.